vitamin of our destiny is to make firm establish. So my guest and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Leigh Rouser, sorry. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met before, then my name is Rae, and I'm a transformational coach and trainer who helps women to the crossroads in their life, heal their past, create their future, and transform their present, so they can take charge of their destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use future life progression, past life regression, angelic Reiki, angel oracle cards, guided meditation, hypnosis to help women who feel lost get clear on their reason for being here. And I've also created several transformational packages, a journey through lifetimes, as well as a 6-week guided meditation series to help you step into confidence. Now, each episode of this show covers various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or an angel card reading, with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Leigh Rouser, about spirituality and intuition and how to recognize it. Now, Leigh has near on 17 years' experience in the healing field and is a psychic medium, seer, channel, energy and card reader, spiritual healer, mentor, and guide. And she bridges the worlds between the realms as a spiritual guide and messenger of spirit. Now, Leigh is assisting in breaking down the human programming, living life purposely, authentically, as well as being a way shower. Now, while inspiring hearts lead ways of being and empowering one into balance and alignment with their truth. Now, with testimonials such as Leigh Rouser did a reading for me today, everything she said resonated with me so much. She was so spot on that I literally got chills and goosebumps. She mentioned details of my life that were so true. She also gave me so much clarity that I've been looking for desperately. I highly recommend her. She is truly amazing. And another one, and very intuitive, made me feel comfortable, made me think of things that I hadn't thought about in a long time. At the same time, she's spot on. I definitely would recommend her. She's definitely here to help people, and she's very caring and goes that extra mile just to make sure you understand and make sure you feel better. I give her 5 stars. So without further delay, hello, Leigh, and welcome to the Angels of Destiny show. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Ray. I hope you are too. Thank you so much for inviting me on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for coming. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this video, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Leigh and I want to be part of this conversation. So please don't be shy. And we've already got some people here. So we've got Moda Live, who's going to be listening to this while they work. Malik is here. Hi, Malik. Jasmine is here. Hi, Jasmine. Malik has shared. Thank you so much, Malik. And Sampath says, hi all, welcome to you. So, Leigh, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how we can recognize our own spiritually and intuition?
Sure, Ray. Let me start with just, I guess my journey into my own discovery of my own gifts. So, I'm a light worker, indigo, uh, ancient one that's come to return to planet Earth to help the Earth shift into the next dimension. So, what that means is, it's like, or let me back up a little bit. I've always been intuitive. Um, I did not know I was always intuitive until I actually went to massage school, and that really started to open me up into what energy was, what you know, what healing was all about. It really helped me helped me along the journey in my own healing. But I also discovered quickly when I touched people, I would pick up on information. As a child, I was always very, very shy. And I recognized later that it was because I was highly empathic and highly intuitive. And I could feel energy. And looking back through that journey of healing, different reactions through empathy, I didn't realize that I was quite the absorbent person empathically, and would either react or not understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, you know? And so I had out of body experiences as a very young child. I've had experiences with the star beings as a very young child. I've even had experiences before massage school where I would be taken on journeys and spiral through galaxies and be taken out, to later understand that I was, I guess, in a way, time traveling or receiving likely information that would later download into me, or download that I would later understand. And then when massage school came along, well, partly between the intuition, energy work, learning I was touch intuitive, I learned something in massage school that is called 3-in-1 concepts, and we learned how to muscle test and go down through the consciousness to find root causes, of where unconsciously you've stored trauma or memories that are filtering through your conscious present. And so um, I later understood that also taught me how to access Akashic records, um, down to past lives, uh, you know, inner child work, all kinds of different stuff, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that I don't realize even, there's somebody that I know, it's like, you can even take trauma in from your mother's womb,
Mm.
because whatever she's going through literally imprints in your energy and your DNA. And so, just take, for example, somebody I knew was abused while pregnant. Her child later on repeated that pattern around the same time, in her life, and took on that abusive pattern. And so you just never know how things are programmed on the most unconscious levels down to um, being in womb,
Mm.
and so you can carry those things. But some of us ancient ones and us healers know how to break that patterning for our they call it generational curses, or
Yeah.
ancestral healing, or we can break those cycles for the next generations that come through, and for our families. So
Yeah.
we in a way take on contracts for our families to break those things.
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
uh, and then later, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, Susie says, "Good
Sure.
evening, ladies." Evening, Susie. And what I was actually curious about was, obviously you talked about all these things that happened to you as a child. Were you in sort of like a family that knew all about that, or did you feel alone with it? How did that sort of like play out as a child?
Certainly, yeah, I definitely am alien in my own family, or I'm literally, but figuratively too. I'm called, I guess, what you call the black sheep, or I call it the light sheep. It's
Yeah.
really, it's the ones that are the awakened ones that come in like that at birth and have ancient lifetimes that um, they're here to remember and to, go through their own trauma so they can in turn help others with it, I guess. But no, I definitely, and I still do, they do the best they can to understand. But I heard one time, people can only meet you as far as they can meet themselves. And I think that's very, very true.
Mm.
Um, you know, um, and so
Did you get scared as a child when this stuff was happening?
I think for me, I just reverted inwards. And so, um, but it made me a really good observer of energy. And so that's where intuition comes in. And if you can become a very good observer, you can find out all kinds of things that are going on in the unseen realms, you know, between people's feelings, people's thoughts, you know, and on down the line. But yes, feeling alone is definitely, and I still feel like I am one of these people that's part of all tribes, but no tribes. I don't fit in anywhere but everywhere at the same time. I can relate to many different people. I've been through many different things upon lifetime, and along this lifetime. And so it's allowed me and has been a very great teacher to be able to relate with um, different parts of our humanity, is the way I'll say that, you know. Um, and it's interesting that you know, it's like we're all on our own soul journey, you know, but we are also very connected, and it's also similar, you know. We do not have to be, you know, I don't know. It's just like there's so many different dimensions to who we are as a species. And if you go into our galactic histories, I mean, that can get really deep. And why, first of all, there's history um, of why we're so disconnected. And then, second of all, it's our programming and our systems. And then, you know, we have, you know, a lot of healing to do collectively, I think, still yet, even though we're getting there, you know. And the main thing, I think, and what it means to be authentic is to really connect with yourself. If you connect with nature, um, you'll understand that, you know. Uh, Humans are the only species that have lost their connection, and really, nature um, is more evolved and more connected than we are. Even though we are part of it, we have forgotten, you know, our connection, you know. And so to really, and another part of being authentic is to be honest with ourselves, you know. We can't heal anything until we are truly honest with ourselves and reach those unconscious places that are programmed through trauma, and we repeat patterns. But part of being conscious is to bring awareness to those places, and then we make conscious shift to change it in those moments, and then move forward. But I think we are so programmed, we humans, you know, change is very hard for us for some reason. We tend
Yes.
to revert back into our own patterns, and that's why we have to really bring awareness to those patternings, you know. And then we shift the world when we shift ourselves, you know. And then we can start leading by example, you know, and not repeating behaviors or actions that we once did. And the main thing is to learn. That's part of why we're here, is to learn. And some of those teachers come hard. Some of them come in a great polarity, but they're good teachers. And so, you know, learning to take all of that and transmute it um, to your own evolution, I guess.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's actually recognizing it, isn't it? Because we do come in, we forget all about this. You know, if you've not really had experiences when you were a kid, you've not been in a spiritual family or anything like that, and then it's you go to mainstream school, you know, you go to work, you have the news, the media, and everything. It's so difficult, I think, for some people just to recognize and break out of that. You know, how do we kind of like, you know, help people wake up to that?
absolutely, absolutely. And you know, yeah, because it's part of our system programming, you know. And then yeah, it's built that way to keep us disconnected, you know, and to come back. And you know, around, and to teach our children, and to teach our children well. And, if we teach our children what intuition is, every single human on this planet has built-in intuition. It's part of our senses, just like our physical senses is our spiritual senses, right? We're all innately very telepathic. We're transmuting information all the time. And it's just a matter of being aware enough to be connected with what's really going on underneath of all the distractions of the world. On top of that, we have traumas, collectively. And we're just kind of co-pilots. And, it's about coming back to center and getting connected, which can take you on a journey, and an awakening to break down and take some time. But at the same time, we're so cyclic. Everything's very cyclic in the way that we operate. Our consciousness operates. And so, we're constantly dying and rebirthing. But the thing is not to get stuck like a frozen body of water. You have to be fluid like a river and let it flow. And that's where also your intuition comes in. If you think too much, you're going to go left or right, and you're not really truly seeing something clearly sometimes, even though the brain, has its place in that. It's not where the intuition is, is the way I see that. But anyways.
Yeah, well, which is fascinating because you do automatically think, don't you? Oh, my intuition, it must be what my brain's thinking, because
Mhm.
because that is, that's part of myself. But really, it's not. Your brain just interprets stuff. It's not the seat
Sure.
of your intuition.
Absolutely. Yes. And then sometimes if we're not clear in it, or we have unhealed things, we see it through our own perception. And it's not, we have to learn to get out of the way completely to really see something as deep as we can, and there is such thing as perceptual truth, but then there's the truth, and it, you know, that's where just really being aware and being an observer, I think, comes in, and stepping back to really see what's there, I guess. So,
Yeah, yeah. And we've got Sandy who says hi,
hello, Sandy.
and Eric is here as well. Hello, Eric.
Hi,
Uh,
Eric.
So if anyone, you've got any questions you want to ask about intuition or spirituality, your journey, and you've got, things you're not sure about, this is your chance to ask. You've got Leigh here, you've got me here, more Leigh here than me. So ask, you know, ask, those questions about
Sure.
if you're confused about intuition or spirituality or anything like that, then just ask the question. Oh, there you go. Malik says, is meditation the best way to develop your intuition?
I think meditation is a tool for many things, actually. Yes. I started meditating. That's actually how I did start opening up to it too. But I quickly learned I would journey, and I learned I could remote view, and I tend to take off. But meditation can also help you ground, and it can help you learn about yourself. When I started meditating, it's like I even saw flashbacks of Lifetime. It was like, this is where I started opening up my third eye. And it was like coming through like a movie reel. I didn't understand it at the moment, but it was actually my first part of my, I guess, opening and awakening. And through the layers of over the years, it's come to understanding. It takes a little bit of time to understand what all that means. But yes, meditation. because it does take, it's a different sight, it's a different hearing, it's a different feeling than it is in our physical three-dimensional world. And so, but to be in both, um, is key, I guess, because that's where the action is. That is where everything manifests through. And so, we connect with our intuition and then we bring that through. And then we create from that place. Uh,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, meditation is a very good tool in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I do well with guided meditations usually,
Yeah.
but that's just me, you know.
But
Uh,
that actually does bring in quite a good point, because Malik
yeah,
here says, my mind gets distracted easily, and Eric says, I'm just coming in, but how do you get out of the way and let intuition really come in? And guided meditation really is a good way of doing that, isn't it?
it is.
Because it gives your chattering left side of your brain something to concentrate on, leaving the way for the right
Mhm.
side of your brain to go, bring that information in, come on in.
Absolutely, yeah. I like to tell people this is something I read a long time ago, but it works for me. I think it's one of those perceptional things. I think whatever feels good and what works for you, I think generally, is good because there's a lot of different ways to do many different things that are not either right or wrong, right? Um, but going back to the question, um, and I forgot. I'm sorry, I went off in a different direction.
That's okay. We sort of like, it was meditation and then guided meditation to keep the mind on track, rather than, to let the intuition really come in, rather than
Oh,
letting your everyday stuff get in the way.
right. What I like to tell my clients is a tool that helps me, is to just focus on a vision and see how long I can hold it before I have another thought, or a word of affirmation, and just, do a word of affirmation. Of course, it helps to keep it positive, but and see how long you can go between thoughts. But there's all kinds of different types of meditation. There's exercise, there's dance, there's art, there's walking meditation. Sometimes running is a meditation for people to get their thoughts out. But it is, I think, very difficult um, to quiet the mind, because it's usually so very busy. So, um, that's what I like to do for myself, is just focus on a vision and try to hold it as long as I can until my thoughts slow down.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't do it too much anymore because my intuition is, pretty connected. I don't really need to be quiet to hear what I need to hear. It just comes straight through. But it's always good to, for me, meditation would be, a reprieve from being intuitive at this point. So I don't talk to 20 different things that want to talk to me and feel everybody's thoughts, But to begin with, I think it's a very good starting point. And
Yeah.
it teaches you to be still. I started doing chakra meditations, is where I started with it. And then things started coming in, and, and then I started traveling out. And so for me, it's difficult to not take a journey when I lay down and get quiet. Um, but that's just my own journey with it, I guess. So,
Yeah, and it is a
yeah,
completely different journey for everyone. I take people in. I'm into guided meditations, and no two people are the same. There are some people that will always fall asleep, but they still get the answers they need. There are some people like yourself that will just go on a completely different journey, but they get the answers they need from that. And there are other people that will
sure.
completely follow the journey and get their answers from that. I mean, Sandy says that she's found listening to brain sync guided meditations work well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the frequency meditations.
I think that's what she meant. Brain sync guided meditations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think it depends on how you operate too. If you're more of a structured person, something like reading something or a guided meditation may work better, you know. I'm not a very structured person. I'm a very flow. I'm just in the flow. It makes me good at being able to catch many different things instead of, I don't think too much about things, I guess, and it is a practice to get your mind out of the way to hear what's on the unseen frequencies, it's always available. We just have to connect with it. And I think part of it has to do with belief structures and what we think it is or how it's supposed to be. Some people get caught up in that. I think it's individual as well. Everybody operates and their intuition works different, and so I think there's a component to that too. And so it just feels like if you're, to me, if you're more structured, you may enjoy, something more structured may work better for somebody that needs something like that, and it
Yeah.
certainly is a good starting point. I just have a hard time not taking off, that's just me, though.
Well, if you've been doing it since you were a child,
Yeah.
it's kind of like an ingrained thing, because obviously a lot of stuff that we did as a child
Hmm.
will affect us now. And as you said, when you look back at your childhood now, you kind of think, oh, that's why they do this now because of that. When I do that,
Hmm.
I look back on my children and go, oh, so that's why I like kaleidoscopes so much, because of geometry. And
Hmm.
and it's not till you're later. So quite often it is a good idea to look back at when you were a child, where you're in, how you got your imagination working, and that what things did you do as a child to get your imagination working, and
Hmm.
and if you start connecting with that again, you've got a very good chance of allowing your intuition to come in, because you're connecting with that child thing again, that when you were free to do it.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of times we're picking up on it. We're actually already doing it. We just don't recognize it. You know what I mean? It's just like we're already feeling information. We're already having thoughts that come in that are actually guidance, but we think they're our own thoughts when they're actually guidance, we just don't know how to recognize it because it's in our own head and our own thinking, right? And it's always, we're more sensitive to it than we realize, it's happening anyways. It is about getting out of the way though, and to let go of any belief structures, I think, about what it's supposed to look like for you, and just allow the space to let spirit bring that in for you. And it can look like many different ways. It's good to sometimes write things down and see what things repeat, or just ask spirit to confirm things that you think or something. And it does take practice, in learning discernment of what's what. But and then visions. I mean, visions can only take you so far too. It's good to have everything open, but they are just one piece to putting a bigger picture together when it comes to interpreting your intuition and what a message means, and so they give you a picture, but you still have to eventually open other places to be able to interpret everything fully, but that's for me. I think, usually most people have are more drawn to one or the other naturally. I think most people are most connected with empathy, I think, more than anything, to start with, because we all feel each other. We can all feel when a room feels intense, and feels, um, you know, like you can cut the energy with a knife, or,
Yeah.
some people thrive off that and are high energy, and they feed off the energy and get really excitable, some people shut down. It just depends on how you operate, I think. And then it goes back into, you know, where your blocks are with, maybe you grew up with a family that didn't understand this stuff. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that um, can be part of the disconnection, but the point is to get connected and to listen, and that's a whole nother thing, is that, it's like we are so very programmed, we don't really listen to one another a lot of the times. We always have to have our voice heard, right? Which is important to be heard, but it's also important to listen, if not more so than it is to speak sometimes, because we learn that way. We observe, we gather information to be able to use that to speak, but there's, it's not that black and white, and it's like, it's just this ebb and flow of that constant, I guess, give and take, or learning to stand back and learning to step forward, um so I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of ways you can you can say it, I think, but
Yeah. Well, Malik is an interesting question, which I think ties in where you said you were flying backwards and forwards through time. Is how many past lives have you discovered that you've had?
uh, probably more than I want to to count, and they're not all good, but not everybody can handle too much of it either. It just depends, and you do have to, you know be careful sometimes, because some of them can be traumatic, but it can also be very healing, um and the important thing is to be present, but and to visit the past, to recollect things so we can understand why we have gifts. Sometimes, actually, I bring a lot of my gifts through other lifetimes, a lot of my Native American past lifetimes, um there's the angelic realms, there's all kinds of different realms I come from, but um that being said, we all are connected to that. We haven't been taught that. Um, and I just want to ask you again what your question was. um,
Well, Malik's question was how many past lives have you discovered that you've had? I mean, if you're like me, all I can say is I've had over 300. That's all I can say, because
sure.
they only you only need to know a particular past life if there's something in this life that you need that you need to know
Hmm.
about it. You're not
Yeah.
going to know every single one, because it would.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming, and can be quite a healing journey too. It just depends on your soul and how new it is, how old it is. And, um, but yeah, I mean, you can, a lot of times you have patterns you do carry from other lifetimes, and you don't really know how to connect with it because it is so far back through your soul's timelines, um, and so, but I mean, it is certainly fun to go discover it, um, but you do have to be prepared to what you might see sometimes. And sometimes you open up cans of worms that you don't know, you know,
Yeah.
um, you get there, and then it's like, whoa, there's a whole nother piece and part, but it's all perfect, um, and so, and you don't have to understand every piece of every single part of the lifetime. It's just the main pieces that are keeping you stuck present time, right? Because that's part of the point, is to clear the present through the past, right? And that could be lived this lifetime or the last lifetime, so,
Yeah.
or many other lifetimes. But I've been killed many times for my
Yeah.
knowledge and
Yeah.
my gifts, um,
Yeah, I
there's
know that one.
things, yeah. And so, yeah, but at the same time, it comes full circle, and you know, they're all teachers, I guess.
Yeah.
People sometimes that have created or supposedly created our traumas, and are the greatest teachers too. They have the most to teach us. Those hard things do,
Yeah.
they have the most juice in them to really, or potential to really, um, help you grow, you know. And if you take it that way. Now, some people shut down and they're still just kind of surviving, but that's what it means when you bring it to awareness and you bring all that stuff conscious. You can start shifting things like that, and you don't always have to connect with all the information. It just takes the recognition sometimes to shift something, because energy moves really fast. Our emotional attachments are very different. The three-dimensional, the physical body, everything that we've been through is very different. It's much slower. But energetically, I have moved things too. And sometimes there is a balance to healing as well. If we're visiting that stuff all the time, it can be very draining and very heavy. And so there is a balance with it. And sometimes having fun and doing something like that can really heal things too, to just let things go and to shake things off. And, it doesn't always have to be about in depth healing. There's balance to it, but pieces at a time. Sometimes it's big chunks and sometimes it's slower. Sometimes we're very open and sometimes we have to go within, but that's part of the cyclic nature of our earth and the universe. I think it's just always moving that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric says, how did you connect to seeing and traveling like you do?
I'm sorry, can you ask
Yeah.
that question again?
How did you connect to seeing and traveling like you do? So I think you kind of like were saying it was just spontaneous, that just kind of like happened when you
Mhm.
when you were a kid.
It did. I've never read really a book with it. I just, I guess it's my ability to just let go and get it out of the way and just let whatever happen, instead of fearing it or thinking about it. It's just opened up. As soon as I started meditating, I started traveling and seeing things. And I used to practice also on like seeing auras with birds. I can still see bubbles around birds and around airplanes and trees. I don't always see them with people, but I can see your cords and everything in your auric field. And even in medical, I guess the medical intuitive part and the massage part, I can see where your back has degeneration or it's got an injury, if you got something going on in your organs, or but then I'll connect you with the spiritual reason why you have an injury or a sickness going on. And so I connect all the pieces to help the whole, I guess it's a holistic approach. You could call it a medicine woman. A spiritual healer is what I call it. I don't use medicines to help heal people, but there's a lot of different ways that people call it. And so our language is all very different, but it's all the same. And so, the main thing, it's my belief that all sickness does come from spiritual sickness, emotional traumas. And if we heal those things, we can heal our bodies, right? Because that's what's stuck, really. People that have heart attacks have a lot of heartache. People with fibromyalgia, I have found out, or what my theory is around it, is a lot of people that have not even closely come to a connection with their trauma. And it's trauma that's very stuck in the body. It's very sensitive to touch, to feel everything. And so everything, if you think about the tissues and how they get stuck like that, it's also energy that's stuck. And so when you release that, it becomes less sensitive, and you begin to heal it. But there's more to it than that, but that's the basic
Yeah.
theory I have around fibromyalgia. But,
Mm.
I think, what we call mental illness sometimes are actually people that are just really gifted. you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I call ADD attention to multidimensionality, because yes, it is hard to, with a lack of grounding, I guess, because you can be in many dimensions or places at one time. Um, the hard part is it's the grounding issue, but you're just aware of information you're picking up on psychically, and so that's how I see that, um, schizophrenia, I see, I think those are probably some of the most gifted people out there now, because their clairaudience is wide open, but it just depends on what you're talking to, and that's where the problem comes in. Now, if people were to understand what that was, and be taught tools to, what energy you're picking up on, um, then it actually could be very, you know, there, if they put it with a purpose and actually talk to their guides, they could really channel through a lot of information. you
Yeah.
know, the problem is that some people have entity issues. Um, but if they were just taught tools, and then you've got traumas around being mentally ill, and then we've got our social issue with that too, and projections and judgments, which makes people even revert more, and it just adds more trauma on top of the trauma. But then, again, it's all in their teachers, and if you take it within, then you can free a lot of that up anyways, because the work
Yeah.
is within, and they're just reflections of things we need to work on, right?
Yeah. So,
So
so,
anyways.
so Malik has got a question, and then we're going to see what your cards want to give an overall view of that your cards want to give to everyone watching. So Malik says, "What's the best way to connect with your spirit guides?"
Well, the best place is to just ask, start asking. At this point for me, I definitely ask before I do any work with anybody. I ask, just ask them. Um, but I don't necessarily have to ask them for them to give me information anymore, but I always ask when I work with people, so don't get that confused, I guess. But it's just ask. It's being connected. What do they say? It's like we think we have to be in control of everything, and we have to do it on our own. That's another program in itself. It's a co-partnership with spirit, and to become the conduit for that. That's our job, is to bring it into creation. But we have to learn to listen, and we do have to ask. We forget to ask. you know so just ask, and then ask them to help you connect with the message, and then ask for confirmation of, you know if you're on the right track or not. Some people like to write things down. I feel like, for whatever reason, I'm not don't remember your name, but like writing down might be a good tool. I like to channel through writing, because it just allows me to flow. But you just can't just don't think about it. Just whatever comes, it doesn't really matter what it says, per se. You might be surprised what comes through if you just let go. Um, and it just takes a practice, and it takes understanding yourself and understanding spirit. So, but I just ask. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really good. And then as Malik said, because Malik was the one who asked that question, and she said, "Agree with
Yeah.
you about," you said, schizophrenia, which is interesting because she's actually a mental health social worker and wants to integrate spirituality and mental health together, which is brilliant that somebody is actually looking at that connection between the both, rather than just chucking drugs straight down somebody's throat.
Sure.
Yeah. So I know the cards have sort of like been going, we want to come out and say something, and that. So normally at this point of the show, I normally say, that I normally do a card reading for everyone watching, or a mini guided meditation. But I'm going to let Leigh do a card reading for what we all what do the cards think we all need to know.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, it's funny because I learned cards the last. I use cards. I think they're good physical representations, but I think I went backwards. And the Heyoka or the trickster in me does things backwards, anyways. But I learned to connect without any tools first, and then now I use them. But yeah, so we got a few popping out here. So I need some glasses. So hang on one second. Let's see.
And Malik does say that, yep, it's been journaling recently and has had message from spirit. So Malik, you're doing it already, which is absolutely perfect and brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So what these cards are showing here to me is what I'm getting is um, first we have the ego. Okay. So we've got spirit. We've got messages. Um, and then we've got transformation, we've got transmutation, which brings the next one, which is the mirror. So it is a deep look within. If you see her looking in the mirror, um, it will take you to the peace or to the healing or to the freeing and the letting go that needs to be done to move in new directions. And so we've got these new directions. But to find your directions, you have to take a look first, and be willing to let go. And then we've got the the white buffalo woman here. And so, it says to let go, and it's about peace. And so I don't know if there's a forgiveness or what I'm hearing is boundaries. I don't know if somebody's struggling with setting boundaries. Um, but I feel like that's part of the work for whoever that is meant for. Um, maybe maybe you let too many people rule or govern your decisions or how you feel is what it feels like. And it's about finding empowerment within your own self and not being, in a way, I guess, a doormat or allowing others to treat you in ways that aren't necessarily the healthiest, And so we do have to create boundaries to protect ourselves, but also, we can be loving, but we have to have respect for ourselves too, and first. Otherwise, it gets all lost and we become lost, is what I feel like saying. But then it says beyond that, and finding new direction is to ignite your passion, and I think that goes back to finding empowerment, but again, there's like, I'm seeing this as a letting go, and I'm feeling like there's trust around that, and maybe trust within the self. There may be some male here that's connected to. And I feel like whoever this is meant for is questioning themselves too much. So to get out of the thoughts, get out of the way, and connect with your intuition ultimately, and follow your feeling, because you're likely right. It's just the thoughts like to go around and around and around something we already know. And so we have to learn to connect with ourselves in that way, and to trust ourselves, that we are being guided in some new direction, and I feel like that's probably a double message in one way and in another way, maybe for a couple of different people. And again, it's like we've got this angel here, and then we've got this, it feels very guardian. It's the ego. So it is part of the connection and asking, and so you shall receive, but to let go so you can get, receive. If we're too worried about what we're, when we're going to get the message, sometimes it takes a minute or we miss it.
Yeah, yeah.
um
Which is absolutely perfect with what we've been talking about
yeah.
on the show today. So it's it's kind of like that message for that. So Leigh, do you have any insights or thoughts to leave our viewers?
hmm I feel like it's around loving yourself. It's the message of love and loving yourself through, um, maybe even what's happened out of your control, is what I'm feeling as a collective. And it's loving yourself enough to let go, is what I'm hearing. So, whatever that means for anybody that's watching or will be watching. So, there's a letting go, but it requires self love and appreciation, and honoring your own truth, and walking your own path. But that might mean you have to let go of certain people, situations, in order to be your best version of yourself, and to honor your own really happiness, because we're living for everybody else. Then, I feel like somebody's getting the joy sucked out of them because they are, maybe perhaps to, always giving, but it's about balance, and we have to love ourselves, you know? Uh,
Perfect.
yeah.
Absolutely perfect. So I
Yeah.
hope everyone that you've enjoyed this conversation and found it insightful, as I know have, and listening to Leigh's journey. I'd love to have been going whizzing here, there, and everywhere as a child. So Leigh, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Okay, you can visit my website at www.leigh.rouser.com, and that's LeigHrouser.com. You're welcome to connect with me on Facebook as well, but that's where my services are, and so you can send me a message through my website too.
Yeah,
So
perfect. And what I'll do is I'll put that directly into the links. And Malik says, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you
Lots
so
of
much.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Malik, for asking your questions. And Eric, I know that you had to disappear on us, and you're going to watch the thing back. So again, thank you for asking asking your questions and being part of the show for us. And again, thank you so much, Leigh, for sharing your wisdom. And of course, if you have reached a crossroads in your life and you need some guidance and finding the meaning of your life and getting clear on your path, then I would love to be that guide for you. So please feel free to connect with me, and we can arrange a free clarity video call to discuss where you are now and how you can move forward to take charge of your destiny. And please do feel free to join my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording where I take you into a future lifetime to get guidance and clarity so that you can use in your current life, as well as a couple of other free gifts. And of course, thank you so much for watching. And I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when the show goes live or I post new guided meditations. Each new subscription helps me along, and gets more people viewing the channel, which means more people start connecting with their spiritual self and starting on a journey and finding the spiritual teachers that are out there and waiting for them to come along and find them. So again, thank you so much, Leigh, for joining the conversation, and thank you so much for everyone watching. Yep, thank you, Susie. And I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. Take care. Bye.